First of all, let's just make sure, as all of you are trickling in and getting settled down in your seats, that if you came to the session Growing Together for a Sustainable Future, you are in the right place. And what we're going to focus our conversation on today is some fierce folks who are working at the intersections of community engagement, community organizing, and activism in the urban agriculture space. So my name is Kolia Souza. I will be moderating the panel today. I am a food system equity and advocacy specialist with Michigan State University's Center for Regional Food Systems. So I'm just going to give a very short introduction of our panelists, but they will give you the more personalized version of that. So we have Duran Chavis with Happily Natural Day from Richmond, Virginia. Yes, all the applause, absolutely. Also Dee Dee Green with Holly Grove Community Garden from New Orleans, Louisiana. And then, last but not least, we have Ty Holmberg with Sankofa Community Farm at Bartram's Garden, coming from Philly. Yes, please, give support, y'all. This is a community session. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna have each one of our panelists who, you know, because we're in community with one another, we're just gonna keep it casual. You know, so we're not sitting up on the stage. Hopefully, if you guys have any trouble hearing or seeing anything like that, please feel free. Just raise a hand, let us know. But Duran, let's start out with you.
Peace, everybody. What up, though? So I'm the director of an organization called Happily Natural Day. Our mission is promote holistic health, wellness, social change through transformation of the built environment for food justice and climate equity. I guess a little bit about myself. I mean, I'm from Richmond. I'm connected to this work as a Black liberation strategy. I just want to seat that and put that as a context for any of my remarks today. We don't do urban ag just for the butterflies and the bees. We do it to free our people. And I'll save any more remarks for later.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dee Dee Green. I'm here in two roles. I'm the interim board chair of the Holly Grove Neighbors Association. We host the Holly Grove Community Garden. Holly Grove Neighbors partners with my employer, American Friends Service Committee's Piece by Piece New Orleans program, and together we're the Sustainable Communities Project. And forgive me if you don't hear a lot of mission speak, but we're working to realize a self-determined community that controls the production and distribution of its resources. So we partner together to manage not only garden spaces, but to also create additional green initiatives in the neighborhood, and I'll talk more about that later.
Cool. What's up, everybody? My name is Ty Holmberg, and I'm the co-director of the Sankofa Community Farm at Bartram's Garden in Southwest Philadelphia. First, I want to give honor to God for waking us up in our right minds today. And I want to just say thank you to the panelists, to the moderator, and for y'all to come out and listen in to us. I hope that you walk away with some wrinkles, some new wrinkles in your brain. And I'm excited to work alongside y'all. Sankofa is a spiritually rooted, intergenerational, and an African diaspora-centered farm. So what's this white dude doing up here talking about Sankofa? The work, as I learn about the history of this country, I don't think that there's any other place that repair can happen than on the land. We start with the premise at Sankofa, and I want to also just acknowledge and honor Chris, who is our co-director, Chris Bolden Newsom from Greenville, Mississippi. We've been working together for 15 years at Sankofa. That we start with the premise that the land in this country is the scene of the crime. And in order to repair that, you need to meet at the land. And so I'm here to try to do that work for repair alongside in this space. So that's what's up. That's why I'm here.
So is Chris in the room? Okay, we're missing Chris right now. That's okay. If he was, I wanted to give him a shout out. Okay, shout out to Chris in Philly. So, there are many avenues through which we can organize to affect change in our communities, but your chosen place is urban agriculture. Tell us why urban agriculture?
So I fell backwards into urban ag. Like I said, this work for me has been rooted in Black liberation strategy. My first job was at the Black History Museum and Cultural Center, Virginia, when I was 23 years old, and that's where we started Happily Natural Day. So Happily Natural Day is a festival that we've been holding for the last 2 decades that celebrates the diversity of Blackness and resistance against the internalized racism that white supremacy has offered Black and brown people. But through the festival, I met Black farmers. They would come to the event, sell vegetables and other value-added products. And those OGs, well, what I call my OGs, they took me under the wing and, would have conversations with me about food security. These are things that I didn't really understand when I was in 21, 22 years old. And when they said, hey, yo, we farm, we don't really have time to go sit in the city and wait for somebody to cop our vegetables. It was like a light bulb went off for us, and we said, okay, boom, well, we'll sell the vegetables for you, right? And so we started pulling up in formerly redline neighborhoods in our community as third-party aggregators of produce from Black farmers, right? And then that work evolved into us growing things because I started feeling guilty. I got older Black men in their 60s pulling up with 400, 500 pounds of produce in a U-Haul truck. And I'm like, yo, if something happened to this brother, then this whole program goes to shit. So I need to be able to grow something, right? So we started our first garden in 2012. And that was lightning striking for me because it shifted my conversation about community empowerment from a theoretical conversation to one of having a practice of like literally being in a place, right, in my community and developing those places to be responsive to the needs of, the folks that I love and care for. So I came to this work not really knowing what it was all going to entail. I didn't know, how to grow nothing. I grew up in apartments, right? My first thing that I ever seen grow was a sunflower in the front of my little stoop in the front of my apartment. But, starting a community garden and then evolving from a community garden into developing urban farms, into developing indoor farms, into going from MOUs where we were like, in agreement to use somebody's land to actually owning our own land in the city. And then, now we just got 80 acres as an act of reparative land justice and in rural Virginia. And then we bought 5 acres in another city 30 minutes outside of Richmond in Petersburg called the Petersburg Oasis. So our work right now is, I came to this work specifically trying to develop strategies to free our community. And, first it was like I need to shift the consciousness, which is still the work. But then I realized that the shifting of the consciousness needed to reflect our built environment, right? That we had to actually do a thing beyond just talking to each other or advocating, right? And I love my advocates, I love my lobbyists, I love my reformists, I love my people that push policy, and I love my data people, but I also love the folks that have a practice of direct action, of actually transforming in our community something that we can see, taste, touch, and feel, and nothing like farming in the city has hit me like that.
I hope I'm able to tell that story or one like it someday. So why urban ag? What you're going to hear me reference a lot is our origin story. My background is in youth development, so I'm used to most of my adult life, even as a young adult, leading like youth leadership institutes and summer camps, those types of things. So even in my work at its very beginning, Piece by Piece New Orleans Evolved is a program of the American Friends Service Committee and began as a violence prevention program. And so traditionally, we were working in an after-school capacity in housing development communities. We were working in summer camps. I was training high school and college-age students to work with younger students in a sort of peer-to-peer capacity. And we were using art to teach alternatives to violence. So the reason why urban ag, it's a very long story, but the short version is the young people I was working with, the high school and college age students were like, we love working with our younger peers, but we want to create systems change. And we know that food is essential to life. We know that it should be a universal basic human right, but we also know there are communities where that's not the reality. And some of the students we were working with, we knew for a fact that much of their nourishment was coming from the corner store. So the young people, the high school and college age students I was working with said, why don't we focus on let's focus on feeding young people, but not just feeding them, teaching them how to grow food. And so that's kind of where our story started. So urban ag became important to me because it was important to the young people that I work with. But in addition to that, it's still important for that reason and for all the other reasons I stated, like it's essential to life and all of that. It's also, in learning and doing, what I've realized is that it's an incredible tool to community build and to promote community safety and climate resilience and economic development when we get to that point. So the question was, why urban ag? Again, it's important to me, again, for those reasons I stated earlier, but I also realized, like, one in 3 children in Orleans Parish is food insecure. So food security was like, okay, let's make sure everybody can eat and eat what they want to eat, foods that are culturally relevant, foods that are nutritionally valuable to people. But again, there were so many other implications for like growing food in our own neighborhood. And so why it's important has really evolved for me. Again, the community building, promoting community safety, but also the impacts for climate and economic development in a neighborhood like Holly Grove in the 17th Ward of New Orleans, a very traditional New Orleans neighborhood that is primarily Black, and working folks, low-income folks, again, wanting to realize a self-determined community that controls, again, its production and distribution of its resources. So.
All right, thank you. Yeah, for me, I feel like I haven't ever been a part of any other container that is a space where people can connect and reconnect with each other. And to the land, and I've seen it again and again. So I came to this work as a teacher. So I was a science teacher in Philadelphia, and so I work with high school students. I'm actually like this is week 6 of week 5. I have 24 high school students and 12 staff that will be anxiously waiting for me to come back on Wednesday for our presentation of learning. We do a walk with these students, and we walk from 40th Street in West Philadelphia to 54th Street in Southwest. And we do observations of the food and how it changes and moves throughout the community. But the people look different, and how that is also connected to the quality of food, the options, all this stuff. And that opens their eyes to the reality of what is happening. And then we take it a step further. And like this idea of food, and you've been hearing this a lot, but this idea of food security versus food justice versus food sovereignty. So we at Sankofa are moving to a space for people to develop their tools for self-reliance, right? We want them to be able to walk away with real tools of how to take care of their, not just self-reliance, but community reliance. And so for me, I mean, it's not, I mean, we say urban ag, we are city farmers, right? I want to get away from that Instagrammy, like, the way that, urban ag can be portrayed. Like, we really are growing food for the survival of folks in our community. And for us, like, and just to see again and again and again how when you connect young people and old people, this is an urgent thing too, y'all. Like, we are losing, especially in the North, we are losing a lot of the knowledge of the folks that moved up from Virginia, from South Carolina. It's the last generation of folks that have really been connected to that work. And we need to be creating and are creating programs that are reconnecting those elders to the young people, so they can then learn and move. And the last thing I'll say is this: it's an awesome business to be in because it is a magical thing. Like, we all come from farming families as human beings. We all come from farming families, right? And so when we open folks up to be able to plant that seed, watch it grow, and it becomes a part of you as you eat it, that's work. You're working with magic. Like, it's beautiful. So we talk about the rehumanization. In human meaning of the earth, humus, right? We are literally rebuilding the bridge back to what it is to be a human being. And that is why we grow food in a city, and that's why we do it intergenerationally and with spirit and culture.
Did y'all know you were coming to this room to hear something like this today? Yeah, so I want to pick up on something that I think each of you touched on, and making this connection between survival, generations, and how we engage communities. So I can say personally, I work at an institution, but outside of the institution, I've been a community organizer. And I became that because I lived that life. I was disproportionately impacted by issues, being a single mother, experiencing violence, growing up in poverty, like all of those things. And that's how it happened. So to you all, how do you engage communities across the spectrum and get them to activate and be committed to the movement?
So for Happily Natural Day, is really just meeting community members where they at. A big part of our work is that we are a festival. So every year we have a convening of activists, healers, artisans, musicians, vet OGs, younger, the kids, the babies. Like, we bring everybody together to the event. So, of course, the marketing, the flyers, using art, music, culture, to draw people in is one element of it. But when it comes to the farming, it's a little different. It's a little harder. Because, I was just talking to Piper. I don't know where she at, but, people be like, ooh, the bugs, especially like some of our more bourgeoisie folks, you know what I mean? No shade, but it's real. Like, we sweat. This is real work, you know what I mean? So what we do, we spend a lot of time training. Like, we teach people how to do this thing. And the two trainings that we offer, we do a boot camp and then we do a 12-week fellowship. So our 12-week fellowship is really designed for people that want to engage with this work. And so we spend a lot of time like, do you want to actually transform your community? Everybody don't have to be a farmer, but you can come tap in on this 12-week session. We meet twice a week. We got hands-on, we got in classroom. And once you finish with this session, right, we will provide you with space to actually do your farm endeavor. So, the land that I was talking about that we own, so we designed 5 of those acres as an incubator farm, right? And so we give individuals 1/4 of an acre or 1/8 of an acre to actually start their farm enterprise. We spend a lot of time co-opting the nonprofit industrial complex to secure resources and infrastructure so that we can activate other people to do the work with us, right? So that means that basically I get a bag and then I translate that bag into infrastructure that other people in my community can use. And so what that looks like now is like there's like 5 farmers on the Petersburg Oasis. There's people that have come through our trainings that are now developing their own infrastructure, and then that replicates like the work. It gets more people engaged into the space, and then it shows that it's a movement that's happening that people can tap into. Then the second part of our community engagement strategy is really place-based, right? We manage 8 urban gardens and farms in our region. So our largest farm in Richmond is Sankofa Community Orchard, right? Yeah. Where at Sankofa, the design of the space is really intentionally put so that people can see themselves in a green space, right? So we use murals. We have over 14 murals that have been commissioned by Black artists from across our region that are depicting Black liberation strategists like Fannie Lou Hamer, George Washington Carver, Assata Shakur, Amilcar Cabral, Cesar Chavez, Claudia Jones, even people from my hometown, like people that like are local heroes, we put them up. So that serves as an engagement strategy. So people riding down the block, they see all this beautiful art, and they're like, oh, it's pretty. And then when they come out to the space, we have an opportunity to do political education on why these people are relevant and how their work resonates with us today. Then we sell watermelons and vegetables on the farm, you know what I mean? So we just did this. So this is the first time so shout out to all my rural growers that do 100, 200, 300 acres of produce. This shit is real. Like I can't do that on 5 acres. So the homies came up from Brooksville, South Carolina, and dropped 400 watermelons on us, right? And we got rid of that shit in 10 days because we use the social media and all that different type of stuff to promote it. But telling community members like, yo, we got seeded watermelons for sale was, meeting people where they was at. Everybody want, seeded watermelon, right? So every day for 10 days, I'm getting like 30, 40 people coming over to the farm. Like I'm trying to get on these watermelons, right? So as a community engagement strategy is like, boom, like, we try to figure out what's going to palpitate with the community and get them inside of a space. I think I'm gonna pass the mic after I say this. I think this idea of community engagement needs to be examined and inspected, right? Because these are pretty words, but what does it really mean when you're saying you're engaging community? I'm a member of the community. Like this is not. It's not an other, right? So when people say, "How are you engaging?" I live here. I'm from here. I grew up around the corner. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not like a dude in the office in the cubicle. You know what I'm saying? So, like, internalizing that has been critical to the strategies that we develop in order to, get people involved. Because it's like, what did I need? Like, what made me want to get involved? So let me replicate that. And even for like the younger people, I'm 44. So like with the 20-somethings that's coming up, what did I need when I was 20-something? That would have made me lock in, right? So I needed somebody that had some land. Like when I first started doing this, I ain't had no land. And I had to struggle to find land and tenure, So now we're like, all right, boom. So now I'm gonna create a situation so that when you wanna come and activate in this space, you ain't gotta worry about whether or not the land is available for you. Yes, you got tenure, we own it. So yeah, you can rock out here. I don't got no tools. Okay, well, we cop the BCS and you share that at the farm. You know what I'm saying? We got seeds, we got the greenhouse, we got the cold storage. Like, what is it that you need? Let me make sure that that's available to you. And that type of engagement for me is like, how do I increase your agency so you don't need me? That's the goal. It's like, for me, community engagement is really about, like, the Arnstein ladder of civic participation. I'm not just gonna survey you to death or do you a focus group. I'm literally like, yo, what is it that you need to be free? What's gonna activate your self-determination? Because really, at the end of the day, that's what well, in my opinion, that's what this is really what it's all about.
So, full disclaimer, I'm not a member of the bourgeoisie, but I am one of those bugs people. Not so much bugs, but lizards are our neighbors in New Orleans, obviously. So we're their neighbors. And I'm deathly afraid of them. But I also want to mention that I'm not a farmer. I've learned a lot about growing in this process because I've had to. I also lived in the neighborhood where we worked. So again, I'm going to reference our origin story. So I'm working with these older students who are like, we want to affect systems change. So again, we have this sort of background in creating these summer experiences. So we started talking about, why don't we we're working in all these neighborhoods in their after school programs and in their summer camps. Why don't we create one in Holly Grove? There were a few of us who lived in that neighborhood at the time. So around the same time we were having these conversations about larger systems change, a donor from New York, there's a very long story connected to it. I won't share it with you, but a donor from New York said, Freddie Gray was just killed in Baltimore, by the way. So he was like, I want to put some money into movement for Black Lives Matter, that type of work. So he said, here's a budget, find a house or a property, and I'll donate it to your program. So we agreed that, again, a few of us lived in Holly Grove, interns included, and we were like, well, let's create some canvassing events in Holly Grove. Let's contact the neighborhood institutions, get permission to talk to our neighbors about, like, if we had these resources, what would we do with them? And the two emerging themes that came out of all the canvassing and relationship building we were doing were food access and resources for young people. So one of the first things we did we get the property in the neighborhood, there's a house on it, there's another outside effort fundraising for us to renovate the house. Meanwhile, there were some young people in the neighborhood who noticed us there and wanted to know what we were doing, and we explained to them that we were going to build a backyard garden, and we needed all the help that we could get. So with their help, with their assistance, we were able to build a small backyard garden. We said, this will be a teaching space, again, to teach young people methods of sustainability. Very quickly, we had to abandon that property. And so we appealed to the city of New Orleans, said, hey, can you give us, mind you, there are tons of vacant lots still not in commerce after Hurricane Katrina. So a lot of them are just sitting, or developers are swooping them up and putting $300,000 properties on them in a neighborhood where the average median income for a household is like $40,000. So pricing folks out of the neighborhood. So in our minds, it's like, if we could get as many of these properties as possible, we can grow food on these properties. So we appealed to the city. They're like, we can't give you a property. We had a very supportive council member. She said, but I can hook you up with a program where you can lease property for a very affordable price, and I can hook you up with some money. So our first vacant lot, again, we built the backyard garden, had to abandon it, but our first vacant lot, we built with some of those same students and other students who were participating in our summer camp. So once we built out the property and really began growing food, and that took a while, we started using food shares and food-related events and all manners of activities to encourage people to interact with the property, to engage with the garden, because it was a community space. So we would host school supply giveaways. Again, we used it as a teaching tool for our summer camp. So all summer you would see young people over there planting, painting boxes, watering. We did big cookouts. All of this was free. This is what we were doing to, again, encourage people to interact with the space. So those were the tools we were using early on to engage people. Then COVID hit. And so we had to do some major pivoting. There was food in the ground and it was growing, but I was able to secure some resources, and I immediately went to those families, the kids, the students that we work with. I couldn't find any of them. I put notes on their doors. I called them, phone numbers disconnected or it belongs to someone else. So we're talking about, again, a traditional New Orleans neighborhood where it's like 50% renter occupied, 50% owner occupied. So this may have been before the moratorium on evictions. I don't know, but I couldn't put my hands on the young people that I work with. So we had to think about, so we have some money, we got to give it to people, and we have this food in the ground. What are we going to do? So since COVID, we've not been able to engage young people in a meaningful way, but we knew we wanted to continue the service, the partnership, the alliances, the relationships we had built were still intact. So we were like, well, we're going to keep growing food. And when people weren't so intimidated by moving outside, we were like, let's lease a couple of more properties and build and invite the community to build some additional properties. So I'd say by the end of 2020, we're working on like a third of an acre, nothing like these gentlemen. So we're moving forward. So we probably by the end of 2020 had about 37. A total of 37 beds on different properties in the neighborhood. And we still, in order to engage folks, we still use food giveaways. We knock on doors. We flyer the neighborhood. We participate as a neighborhood association, participate in all kinds of, school supply giveaways, all manners of things. We still use those strategies, but we've also expanded now to create programming that both goes to folks in community and something create things where people can come and learn and participate. So we have what we call a community kitchen. That's a sit-down meal where we're having conversations not only about food, but we're talking about what about community solar? How do we alleviate this energy burden that has people strapped? We have a solar community fridge that's a free access fridge. So those are things that have sort of grown, conversations and actual things that have grown out of our community kitchens. Putting properties into a land trust, that's very important to us, so we're working on that right now. Those are conversations we're having in Community Kitchen. And Community Kitchen is a meal at someone's home or at some of the neighborhood institutions. So it's not just come here, we're building it, come to it, but we're in people's homes and they're inviting us in and saying, yeah, let's fix the meal here and we can host at least 25 people. And so that's one activity. We do a monthly get to know your garden series where we invite people to come, and we do cooking demos. So we say, here's what you can do with lemongrass. We get some rice and some chicken and put it on the grill, and that's a meal. So we're doing more of that type of programming to engage people. But again, we continue to give away food as much as we can, or provide opportunities for people to access food as much as possible. And our strategy is really simple. Besides social media, we use a mass texting app. And the day of an event, we can send a text and 75 to 100 people will show up. And not necessarily to work in the garden, but if we're doing something, no, not at all. If we're doing something where, again, people can get free food, people will show up, and that's our opportunity to say, here's what else is happening in the neighborhood, here's what else we're doing, come check out what we're growing, and you're welcome to come and pick it as soon as it's ready.
Yeah, give it up. We gotta warm ourselves up in here. Cool, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know, I'm sick and tired. So many groups are like, how do I know what the community needs? And I'm like, you gotta just ask people and authentically listen to them and then go find the resources to make it happen. So I also think a couple things that I would say is hire young people. Y'all need to pay, like, and I would love to work with you to find ways. There is so much workforce development money out there, and there are ways to really make sure that that happens. But get people on the land and pay them, and provide pathways for them to increase their compensation and to increase their responsibilities, and develop a multi-tier mentorship program. So we have students that are 9th graders that are brand new, that are getting taught by 11th and 12th graders that have been in the program for a while, that then are taught by alumni staff that just graduated, and staff that have been in the program for 12 years. That is the health and the multi-tier mentorship that works. And then they're all being informed by elders in the community, and being guided through their pathway, right? And also provide economic pathways. So we work with community college that's near you, to support ways for them to get free education, and then also build a relationship cohort that has them back on the land. Because let me tell you this, and I really want the USDA to listen to this, because if in 10 years, like, the people that live in the community need to be running the programs in the community, right? Like, I need to get out of there. Like, I've been there, I'm dedicated, but honestly, y'all, like, and we need to make that happen. And I think and I want them to hear this, is that beginning farmers and ranchers programs are not just about production and marketing, right? We need an urban ag, specific money for urban ag apprenticeship that is wide in these 27 cities, that is training the next generation. And they train first on how to grow the food with intention, right? And then next, they build the skills of being a teacher, a community organizer, a culinary person, right? They do that work because we need to train. There is something that's been broken intentionally already in getting connected to the land. And we need to train up our young people in the communities to be able to take those jobs, because those jobs are good jobs too. So, like, I really, really want the USDA to hear, like, let's build a strong apprenticeship program specifically for city growers. Let's do that, y'all. The way that we also engage, we believe in a dialogue, right? So we have a lot of events. We have a community garden that's also next to the farm. So we have 60 beds, and you have elders and people that are learning how to grow their food, and we have this beautiful interaction that's happening there on the space. We also do this really cool thing where we've installed and built 300 home garden beds within Southwest Philadelphia in the last 4 years. And what that does is we go out, we have these 3x5 foot beds, we put in good soil, we get connected to the folks, and we're on their block, right? And we're installing these beds. And then they are coming back. So it becomes this dialogue. And then we have a workshop series that they come back and they learn, oh, what's this beetle eating my collard greens, whatever. And then, so we're creating this nice dialogue, and then they're keyed into different events. We have a huge harvest festival. Events are a wonderful way to do broad network. But let me tell you, hiring young people, it's a slow process, right? It's word of mouth to build that trust. There's so many organizations coming in and out of these communities, and you have to be there and be consistent and actually build the trust. So eventually, now that we've been doing this for 15 years in Southwest Philadelphia, they know that, oh, so-and-so's nephew got a job there, and then they come through, right? So, like, that's how that movement gets built. It's slow, but also the last thing I was going to say is build, if you have the capacity, develop an elders board or a neighborhood, a board of people within the community to hold your mission tight. Pay them for their wisdom, if possible, and have them stay connected to make sure that they're helping to guide. Because as you know, the nonprofit world, if you're working within that, goes up and down a lot, right? And you need folks that are in the community that are going to be the North Star truth seekers, right? So those are some of my suggestions that I hope you walk away with.
So I'm going to switch things up because I see people have questions, and I saw just start off with here and here, and then I'm going to come around and try to get all of you, okay?
I know, like, come on, man, we got to.
Hello, my name is Karina, forgive me if I don't say your name right, Vidisha. My question is, the land that you all kind of moved to, and then the additional land that you have, are you all still leasing that? And is there a chance that you could lose that if developers come and the city decides, okay, we're going to give this to the developers?
So thank you for that question. I was going to make sure I highlight where we are today. So the first land, not the backyard garden, but the vacant lot, I helped to facilitate the sale and donation of that property to Holly Grove neighbors. And our hope is we put that in a land trust. And as we acquire more land, we do the same, put it in a land trust. A couple of properties we do lease. And yes, we run the risk of, I feel like the city will honor the lease. But I believe if a developer comes and says, I'll pay X amount of money for this property, that they would sell it to them. So there's always that risk. Yeah, we're in a lease. We don't have any kind of like MOU or anything that says y'all can be here for 10 years. They're 3-year leases.
Oh, okay. I had one that was 10 years. I was able to get a 10-year lease from the city. I'm not sure if that's something.
We tried to do that. We know that right after Katrina, the city of New Orleans was giving nonprofits properties. And that's why we appealed to them to give us one. They said they didn't do that. They have all kind of, Growing Green says the one we participate in, you lease 3 years, we'll sell it to you at market value. That first one, we got it assessed at $18,000, and a generous, very generous church organization bought it, no strings attached, and said, here, it's yours. The other properties we lease on and have been since like 20 are now like $35,000 and $45,000.
Right.
So,
okay.
So yeah, and then some properties we're on are privately owned. Folks who live in a neighborhood that have vacant lots have said, I have no plans for it. If y'all want to grow food on it, you can.
And one last follow-up. So what about the non-tax, like if they're not paying their property taxes, are you able to then go back in and consider looking at those lots where it'd be a lot less to pay the taxes and then own the land?
So we've also asked the city about some of that. So this was our dilemma. We were, for years, we've been maintaining properties that are vacant lots that are adjacent to to our garden properties, because when they get overgrown, they become dumping sites, right? So folks are saying, can y'all clear that lot? So I'm paying out of my very small program budget, I'm paying a lawn service to keep that clear. So we said to the city, if some of that property, so we were on a big corner lot. Some of those properties are privately owned and that folks are paying their taxes, or the family's paying the taxes. Some of them the city owns, and there are investors that are paying the taxes. So again, we've said to the city, if there's an opportunity and it comes up for sale, please contact us first. So what the city told us at the time, this was a while ago, what the city told us was stop cutting the property so that we can cite the owner. And then I was like, we don't want to acquire property. That's not how we want to get land. I could go talk to the family and see if there's any interest in selling it before I take it from under them, because you're telling us to stop cutting the. What about these investors? What about these properties that these investors are supposed to be caring for? We're cutting those lots. Talk to me about that. But not a property that's already owned by a family, and maybe the dad is deceased and the kids are paying the taxes. No, I didn't want to do it that way. So thank you for the question.
I just want to say one thing about land access in the city. And I had a conversation, Zach, the director of the FSA, came, and we're talking about ways to kind of find like little things within the Farm Bill to make it work for urban ag folks. And when it came to land access, one of the things that I really wanted to push and have other USDA folks, I think they're all in the other room, but I also hope they're listening to this too. Yes, what's up? So the idea that we need to make it more attractive for cities to support farmers getting land than developers getting land. And the way that we do that, and I think that there are creative ways to do this as a national. I think that there can be a pot of money to help pay back taxes. I think that it will depend on the different cities, but we need to work together, and the federal government can incentivize cities to prioritize that, right? And we need to get creative, depending on your ecosystem of whatever city that you're in. We need to get really creative about that because we're scrapping. We will scrap because that's what we do. Farmers do. That's what we find a way. But we're scrapping for little parcels of land when we need to, from on top, that land needs to come. We need a direct pathway to ownership and to solid being able to grow there for years and years and years. Yeah.
I just wanted to shout out to the National Black Food and Justice Alliance. They're my folk. I've seen Dr. Jazz in here. So any of you all that are maybe like looking to try to figure out ways to get capital in order to purchase land, the National Black Food and Justice Alliance, Resource Commons, and the Black Land Defense Committee, they're both committed to ensuring that Black and brown organizers can access land. They're literally like a couple months ago, there was a whole RFP that was put out for folks to do a low, no interest loan to literally purchase land. And this is a Black organization that's giving out, hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this thing. The other one I was going to talk about, the way we got the land that we have, the 80 acres, as well as the 5, we worked with the Agrarian Trust out of Oregon. They assisted us with the technical and the legal first, because that's a whole bag to get the survey, the assessment, the deed transfer, the title transfer, to get the lawyers and all that type of stuff to actually get the deed and title ownership of the land. I ain't even know I had to have the money to just go get the. Anyway, the Agrarian Trust helped us with that. They have a mission to remove land from the speculative real estate market to preserve it for farming, and they have an interest, especially in Black and brown communities, to do that. And then they helped us raise the money to purchase the 5 acres that we bought in Petersburg. So, for all of us in urban spaces, I know the challenge right now is affordable housing. The crisis is real. The city don't want to come up off of these properties because they want to save them to turn them into houses. So, we got to figure out how to get our capital up. So I know we talking urban. If you can get some land in the rural, get some land in the rural, put a conservation easement on the land in the rural, then come back to the city with the money that you got from the conservation easement in the rural and cop up your block in the urban. That's a strategy, because the conservation easement has a developable value. So if I copped it for 160, it might be 165. That's the way we did the land in Petersburg. It was assessed. The developmental value was 275. So when we put the easement on it, here we got 275 that we could do whatever we want with. So we went back and we're like, okay, we're gonna take that to go cop some more land and then repeat the process. So, this is we ain't got the money to really be trying to, we got to figure out strategies to get it. And so those 2 organizations out there, and that's a way that we can move this thing forward.
Oh, good afternoon. I had a question about community gardens. I work as an A&R county agent for the Southern University Ag Center, and I cover St. Helena Parish. So, Ms. Green, this question was kind of for you, but with everything you guys said, it's kind of for all of you. My situation is a little bit different, though. As a county agent, I work in a very rural town called Greensburg, Louisiana. It's in St. Helena Parish, very small parish. There's only one town. It's a food desert. We only have one grocery store, and I'm not talking about Walmart. It's just the Greensburg market. So whenever there's a hurricane or a bad storm, the market's closed. And so one question I had was youth involvement. There's only one high school in the whole parish. There is no ag teacher. And so my biggest question was what's the best approach to get young students just involved in the upkeep of a community garden, or just having them hooked into it, because it kind of means a lot to me, trying to see those students find a passion for it. Maybe if it's not college, it's just something they could find a passion for.
Thank you for your question. That's one we're still trying to answer in this post-COVID or whatever we are now era. But in the beginning, again, a lot of little kids with nothing to do. We would catch them or they would be curious about what we were doing. So that's how, in the beginning, that's how it started. One of the things that happened right before COVID was the school approached us. The school that was in the neighborhood approached us about, will you build a schoolyard garden that we could eat from, we could feed the students from. And everything, the paperwork was signed, and then COVID happened, and then it just never happened for a variety of reasons. So that's been, for the work we've done in Holly Grove, that's really been how we did it. We knocked on some doors, or our neighbors would say, it's 10 kids in that house. Go over there and see what they doing this summer. Or there's some kids that hang out on the corner. So, and we would go and talk to them. Again, I'm in my 50s. I didn't do it by myself. I work with a lot of my colleagues who were, again, high school and college students. And that's kind of how we engaged young people in the neighborhood. And we never, I don't want to mislead anyone, our summer camp was never huge. We might have had at maximum like 25 students who were coming in one summer. But the way we got to 25 was those kids were bringing their cousins, or they had folks staying with them for the summer. And the only way they could go is if everybody in the house, could be a part of the summer camp. So again, that hasn't worked so well. We did one summer camp after COVID, but we didn't have the church that donated its space was in disrepair, and they hadn't even been in the building for a long time. So we didn't have a location. So we fashioned that summer, it was just all field trips. And at the end of it, we were going to help sort of, we had built out one garden space. We were going to kind of spruce it up with those students, and they said they didn't want to do that. It was too hot. They didn't want to be out. They didn't want to be, spend 3 or 4 hours out in the sun. So we're still challenged with, like, how do we re-engage young people in the neighborhood? But in the beginning, it was easy. We saw those who really needed and wanted something to do, and we kind of hooked them, and their parents bought into what we were doing as well. So it was easy in the beginning, but it's been a bit of a challenge in the last few years.
Thank you.
I was going to say collaborate or find other organizations that you can find partnerships with, and pay the kids, man. If you want to get the kids there, offer up a stipend. That's worked for us because it's, kids want something to do, but they also want to make some money too. So if you can figure out a way to partner with some organizations to figure out how to get those stipends into their hands, and that could be a way forward to getting the young people involved and keeping them engaged in what you got going on.
Yeah, I would also say, pay first, but then creating love and belonging needs and feeling like you're part of a crew and a team, and food, like eating there. Those are like the 3 things. But once you start to cultivate that community, and their friends come back together, and like that is as strong. That's why people keep coming back. All my students say, I came here for the money. I didn't really know what I was getting into, and I stay because of the connection that I have made with the land and with each other, right? They'll say that again and again and again, right? So that's what I would say.
So real quick, I'm going to come over here. There is one over here, one over here. There's one up here, and I know there's some back here too. We'll do a time check in a couple of minutes, but I'll start going around.
Thanks. My name is Chris Chiaravagli. I'm starting a community garden on the east side of Detroit. And what you were saying, Ms. Green, about community land trusts really piqued my interest. And if anybody has experience in community land trusts, I'd be interested to hear you expand a little more about it and how they are a useful tool in helping the community take part in value creation when the land increases in value, or just to help empower people to have ownership in their neighborhood.
So this year, through American Friends Service Committee, few of us who are working around housing issues. We're not specifically, but we were included. We did a tour of a couple of land trusts in the Boston area and in the Bay Area. And most of those were housing. They were working on housing. We're interested in putting these garden properties into a trust. So those tours were enlightening, and we have some community land trusts in New Orleans that it's a priority for us to pick their ear and kind of explore, what are the first steps. One of the things that we have done is we've gotten some interest from residents in the community to serve in a board capacity, or even just for now the planning. We need to figure out step 1, 2, 3, or how we get from A to Z. We need to figure all of that stuff out. But we right now we have a property. We have some folks who are interested in being a part of the governance, and the intention for us is. Right now, we're growing food on this property, but 20 years from now, folks could decide that they want to build affordable housing on the property, and that would be up to the neighborhood. The whole idea around land acquisition was to keep it out of the hands of the developers, because they are, again, building these properties that price people out of the neighborhood. So I wish I could tell you the first thing you need to do, because I don't know. That's what we didn't discover on the tour. All of these were established trusts, and it was around housing. But our intention is any lots that we can acquire, we put them into a trust. And we just learned that the leasing program that we participate in, they're now allowing lessees to show interest in properties that will be auctioned. And what we've been told by the city is that some of those, the starting bid is about $4,000, and it's not a very competitive process. So we see a way forward. I can raise $4,000. I don't know if I can raise $40,000 in one fell swoop. So our hope is that as soon as that process comes back around, that we're able to show interest in some properties in the neighborhood. If they're up for auction, purchase those and put them into a trust. But right now we're at a point where we have some residents who are interested in serving as governance and helping to plan what this trust. I'm assuming it's setting up any other entity. We probably have to have some bylaws or whatever you need to be a thing. So yeah, I wish I could tell you more. I learned a lot on the trust, but it was so focused on housing and residents and rules around occupancy, and that's a little different from what we're doing right now.
So we just recently started our own community land trust, the Central Virginia Agrarian Commons. So it's essentially you could choose. It's really written into your bylaws how your community land trust operates. But ours is a nonprofit 501c3. Some people have 501c2s. It just depends on how you want to legally set up your entity and whether or not you're going to have a parent organization or you're going to be a standalone entity. But let me backtrack. So the Community Land Trust is essentially an organization that's a landholding entity that holds the land and issues leases for that land. So, it's a strategy for community control of land resources in your community, right? It's a Black liberation strategy that comes out of the civil rights struggle in Georgia. Charles and Shirley Sherrod, who were SNCC activists, after the Voting Rights Act passes, they stay in Georgia and as a strategy to protect the land for those farmers that were facing racial terrorism and paper terrorism from the municipal government. They set up New Communities, Inc. to hold farmland as well as housing for the farmers in Georgia. So all housing land trusts that we see, all these affordable housing land trusts in your community, owe that strategy to Black activists in the South. So your job is to go hold those housing organizations in your communities accountable to this strategy, right? Don't let them get away with just being a white-led organization that's doing affordable housing with no real presence of Black, folks or even social justice orientation. It's our job to hold them accountable. The last thing I'm gonna say about community land trust is that we can do both, right? We can do food as well as housing, right? And so that's been our experience over the last 2 years, working to develop projects that iterate affordable housing as well as food justice. So neighborhoods with farms integrated into them, radically imagining what we can do and not being capped off like we're just gonna do a community garden. I'm challenging all of you. Like, let's think bigger than community gardens and school gardens. Please. We're in the room with the USDA. They love to take pictures of our children and put them on brochures because of the community garden and the school garden. It is an act of colonization when they do that. They will ignore the organizations that are trying to enter ag as a vocation to supplant and bring the community garden. People say, oh, look at the good work that we're doing. But, our communities were growing food professionally, and we've lost millions of acres of farmland, not just community gardens, right? So this urban ag conversation, don't let these people get away with just throwing up a community garden and a school garden or just giving the money to the community gardens or the school gardens when there are actual farmers in your city that are trying to make a living that need infrastructure, right? And that community land trust conversation is critical because there's a whole rural ag conversation where there's billions of dollars that are funding and subsidizing housing in rural ag, but it's not available for urban, okay? So let's be precise with this thing. Like, if we gonna ring the bell, crack that bitch. You know what I'm saying?
Hi guys, my name's Macy. I'm an undergraduate student at the University of Kentucky, and I'm interning with an organization called Seed Leaf. And we have 10 free community U-Pick gardens as well as a community farm that we facilitate. And one of the major kind of issues that we're facing is Lexington has a really huge homeless population as well as a drug abuse problem. And a lot of the things that you guys have shared have already been really insightful, like meeting your community where they're at. So maybe that looks like harm reduction, partnering with rehab facilities. But I was wondering if maybe you guys have faced any of those issues and if you had any suggestions for how to kind of combat that without being one of those like savior complex type of orgs.
I'm gonna just share this. I had that happen. So when we develop our spaces, we put pavilions up, shade structures. And so when we started doing that, people started sleeping under the pavilions. And so we were in conflict with the city because the city don't like homelessness to be out front. And so we like, what do we do? This ain't really, I don't got a problem with nobody sleeping here. Because if I needed a place to sleep, I'll probably sleep here too. It's nice. There's food here. There's a little oven. We can put a smoker, propane tank, Grace grill. I could literally live here if I wanted to. So what we did is we find people sleeping there, we just be like, yo, man, just don't be out front. Like, if you can find a cut, get your tent, put your tent in the back, put it somewhere that ain't nobody gonna see, because if the city come, they gonna, raise a fuss. The other thing is we started talking to the folks that do work with addictions and drug abuse, like that provide Narcan training for our garden educators, because, there was also issues of people like shooting up. I found a lady, she was nodding off in the raised beds. So it was like, that's a lot to run into, and if you don't have the training to really know how to administer a Narcan situation, you want to try to get that type of stuff involved. So we just talked to the organizations that specialize in that to try to create those bridges, but then also fuck the rules. If they say they can't sleep here, yo, you can sleep here, I don't care. It ain't a big deal for me, but just make sure that, when them people come, that you know that they ain't down for this. We ain't got no problem with it. Just, being in cut with it.
Yes, I dealt with same thing. Yeah.
My name is Giles from the Twin Cities, Minnesota. We're part of one of the 27 cities. I just love everything you've been saying, but I want to acknowledge this table over here. You mentioned, Ty, about young people. Urban Roots, stand up. These are some people from St. Paul, Minnesota, Urban Roots. They get paid. They better get paid. So, yeah, I love what y'all saying.
Can I just say, give it up for the young people. That's right, always. Yo, check it out. Oh, he coming. Yeah. Get acknowledged, y'all. You got no choice right now. Thank you. Yeah. That's right. Young people, I wanna clue you into one thing. The Rooted in Community Conference. Had anyone familiar with that? It's an amazing conference. Young people kept on going to these food conferences and was like, nobody's speaking to us young people, right? So they created their own conference. It's called Rooted in Community. It's been going on. We actually hosted it in Philadelphia in 2011. We created a youth-only group with 180 young people. They created the Youth Food Bill of Rights. Look it up. It needs to get reactivated. It is what the young people demand of their food system. They reignited it after COVID, and I believe it is in New Mexico this year. It's free to go. Did it happen? It might have happened. Check it out. But if it didn't, it'll happen again next year. Get connected, because there is a huge youth movement that's happening, and it's a beautiful community.
I didn't know if y'all was gonna clap again, so. But
no claps, Fred. No.
All right. What's up? And my question kind of followed up after his extension question, because he was trying to engage the children, the youth. Ty, obviously we've done our work, and I'll hold the door for you again if we're not in Philly, but in Houston, I got you. My question is falling around extension. How have you guys, or have your individual organizations tapped into extension dollars to help do some of the program that you're doing? Because obviously I've checked out y'all stuff. I know what's going on with the work that you all do, and it falls in line with extension work, but extension typically gets those dollars where organizations have to try to raise that money. Have you guys been able to tap into your different county extensions within the 3 different states to make the programming that you have work better, or rather than just tying up from the bootstraps?
Go ahead. My connection isn't.
No. Southern University has an ag cooperative. I've reached out to them a number of times and heard nothing from them. So I need to know somebody who knows somebody that can hook me up. And that's on my to-do list. But thank you for the question.
Okay. So we, as a farm, we've had relationship with the EQIP grant. You know, we get the infrastructure from and shout out to Mike Holmes, who's our extension agent. He's good people. I don't think that the structures for the extension really are set up in this moment to like get resources to individual organizations like that. But shout out to Virginia State University, School of Ag. They have an extension office. We are one of the cooperators on this whole national urban ag in the Virginia situation. So our organization, we've gotten some funding from the USDA on the back of this whole thing to do training, you know, in the community. So, you know, it's a yes and a no. Like the extension agents they're not in our city, right? So we have an extension office in our city, but they don't really do a lot. We got Virginia Tech, but Virginia Tech has not normally been in a conversation about the city. You know what I'm saying? So we tap in with our HBCU who loves us, and I love them too. You know, they did us a solid by writing us into a multi-year grant for, you know, a couple $100,000 for the next 5 or 3, 4 years for us to implement this thing, which is great. But the rest of the extension agents, like the normal office, where the boys that got a couple hundred acres go, they don't really have no conversation. They haven't had any conversation with us about funding, and I think that's endemic of the whole conversation that we're having over the next couple of days. The structures that we need have not been created yet, right? The world that we're looking for, like I'm going into the office, like what y'all got? They don't really got it because they never intended for us to be knocking on the door, like. Yeah, nah. So this is a unique moment. I think it's a critical moment because the other room is all full of the USDA folk. But I'm just saying, like, this is the moment that we can really challenge these folks to be like, yo, this is the communities that you're trying to serve are in this building over, we're representative of these communities, and this is what we need, right? We need funding for education. I mean, all of this stuff, manners, 4-H, those are the two that I know right off the top. They are funded. And the extension agents are paying for them to get into these programs. FAA. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. So, you know what I mean? Like, that's traditionally not a black conversation or a brown conversation, but we need to figure out how we make those things cross over to the work that we're doing in communities. So I would just stop there.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Tanya Holmes from Cleveland, Ohio. Kayla Hill and Garden Center, 14 years this year. Thank you guys for saying the things that you're saying today, because I'm in Cleveland doing the same thing. And trying to get the message to the top is kind of tricky, but I find some little techniques to be able to get some funding to some of our urban farmers and gardeners in Cleveland. And we were able to get one of those grants that they offered this past year. We asked for $352,000. They didn't give us the $352. They gave us $252. We're still waiting on our first check. But that being said, when it comes to getting students to your farm, I personally don't do it. I just do a summer youth leadership program every summer for 6 weeks. The organization YOU, Youth Unlimited, they pay the kids to come out in the summer and work, and I just signed up so they can come and work and get all the work done for 6 weeks or whatever. And at the end of the day program, because I have some political connections, they were able this past Friday, to be able to give the kids a certificate of appreciation for working at our farm. And of course, some of the kids are like, I'm coming back next year, so that's a good thing, because they're getting something they can take as a reference with them. Also, some of the other farms in Cleveland use techniques. They use things like what the kids are liking today, which is video games and music. So some of the farms are starting to do like rap classes or something to get the kids to come out, and they will come out for rap music, just so you know, and have a little program. And then at the same time, you're teaching them how to grow food, so you're putting the two together. That seems to work for some of the kids and some of the farms and gardeners in Cleveland when it comes to art, as far as the kids. As far as the funding is concerned, I'm here today, this weekend, representing my farm, Kayla Hill and Garden Center, LLC, not as a coach, as a chairperson for the county committee that they created a few years ago. They didn't want to pay for it, so I found ways, and with that funding that I did get, to do that. Meanwhile, I know what I do in Cleveland is I go around and do town halls at least once or twice a year to get more urban farmers and gardeners to come out and see what everybody needs, try to bring that information to the people at the top when I talk to them. And the way I talk to the people at the top is the same way I'm talking to the people at the bottom, because I feel like when you have conferences like this, it's easy for everybody at the office to come, but I would like to see more urban farmers that's doing the work on the floor, getting the information, learning where the funding is at. Then it's another thing. They say, oh, it's plenty of funding out there. But then when I talk to my gardeners and farmers, they say, well, I look at the application, but the application is, I don't know how to do a SAMS number, or I don't know how to do a DUNS number. So we started some programs in Cleveland. So we go to the library, this is how you do a DUNS number. Because when you go on those websites where the funding is, it's a whole 35-page piece of work, and the average person that know about how to do that is struggling with that. So we started to teach our urban farmers how to deal with the paperwork so they can get some of this funding, because there's tons of money out there, guys. It's a lot of money out there, and I know the Farm Service Agency and the USDA have different programs. I call it a grant. It's grants, basically. They call it programs. And some of those programs, if you need a high tunnel, there's funding for high tunnels. If you want to do cover crops, use cover crops. This is my 6th year getting cover crop money. That's like $6,000 for less than 10 by 10 piece of soil space that we use just to put down cover crops. So the funding is there for that. If you want to put down the pollinators, there's grants and funding for pollinators, and you don't have to have a large space to do that to get several thousands of dollars. That's not a lot of money, but that's some of it. And I'll just teach my urban farmers in Cleveland, every dime we can get, we're gonna get it. Because when it comes to the city policies and state, so when we come to city and local, our local is not connected to our federal and our state because like water system, I'm having issues with a water system. So yeah, the USDA said, oh, it's nothing they can do for it, right? So then there's never no grant money for that, right? But in city of Cleveland, they changed so many ordinance, like they changed if you want bees, they changed the ordinance for bees. If you wanted goats and chickens, they changed ordinance for that. They changed several things like that, but they didn't do the water. And I said, you need water to do all of those things. So I'm fighting just like you guys are fighting. I want to say thank you, and I want to make sure I get you contact before I leave.
So everyone, I know we are right at time, but we had one more question over here. I understand if people got to leave right now, but couldn't get to all of you. I know he's been waiting patiently. One more.
Good evening, good afternoon. My name is Thomas Robertson from Virginia, farming in Virginia. And my question is, if you've got land like this and you're giving people a little plot to grow on and stuff like that, do they sign a contract with you? Do you have insurance? How do you cover workman's compensation or people that are trying to get some money? And how do you decrease your risk and liability?
Yeah, so each farmer is granted a lease on our incubator farm. We do hold insurance for the entire 5 acres, specifically for the farming that takes place on the property. And then I think like we put it up to people to really create their own management plan and have insurance for their own individual business. As they're being incubated on our larger parcel. So I guess like the management of risk for us is like we hold insurance for the entire 5 acres, right, for the farming that takes place there. So anybody gets hurt, there's like, we got $1 million, per incident type of deal with that. But we encourage the farmers that are farming, make sure you get your shit together when you come over here. You want to farm. Make sure you have are you doing an LLC, doing a nonprofit? Like, how are you set up, right? Make sure you get that tight. I had a conversation with one of the farmers, like, I don't know, should I do an LLC? Should I do a nonprofit? So we, like, have a conversation with them, like, yo, these are the pros and cons for you to do, whichever way. But make sure that you get your insurance for your business no matter where you go, because you're going to be selling produce. That we not selling produce. We own the farm. We own the land. I'm not selling the produce that you grow. So make sure you are covered as well. So that's like a part of our training. Is these are some of the things that we make sure folks are considering after they come through our training. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all for staying just a little while longer. Please, round of applause for our panelists, Deron, Dee Dee, Ty.